Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Dragon Run from Blue Orange Games. This is a competitive game. You and the other players are adventurers who went down into a dungeon to steal a bunch of treasure, and of course you woke up the dragon who was guarding that treasure, and she, or possibly he, the rulebook in the back of the box contradict each other on their gender-specific pronouns. In any case, that dragon is very upset and is hunting you down, and you have to sneak out or run out as fast as you can, or hide behind the other players while they run out as fast as you can to get as much treasure as you can out of that dungeon. Whoever has the most treasure is going to be the winner. Let me give you a brief look at how the game is played, then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a very brief run through of Dragon Run. This is a setup for 5 players of the game. The important bit here is the central player board, the dragon board. This dictates when the game is going to end. As I said in my intro, thematically this dragon is chasing you adventurers as you try to run out of her cave with a bunch of treasure. Now this meeple represents her temper track. You're trying to basically tire her out. Whenever her temper goes down to past the 1 mark to like this little moon symbol here, she goes back to sleep, and then whoever's still alive at that point is able to stumble out, count up their treasure, and whoever has the most valuable treasure is going to be the winner of the game. It's also possible she'll kill everyone. That is a distinct possibility, although it is somewhat rare, so do keep that in mind. Now, every player is going to get a different character tile at the start of the game. Every character has a different special ability. At the start of your turn, you can use that special ability, and it does not recharge until the dragon breathes fire again. So you have the Scout here. The Scout, let's focus in a bit because the artwork is really cool for all these. The Scout gets to look at the top card of the dungeon deck when she uses her special ability. The Cleric gets to heal herself or another player. Whenever you get damaged by Dragonfire, you flip yourself over to your injured side, and if you take another hit, you're dead. So you only have 2 hit points, which makes her ability very valuable. The Thief, when he uses his ability, gets to steal a card at random from another player. The Wizard gets to use the last potion that was put into the discard pile. The Warrior is weird. He's the weirdest. Well, he's one of the 2 weirdest ones. When you use his ability, you roll a d10, and depending on what you roll, you may take damage, because you're fighting the dragon. You may take damage, you may have nothing happen, you may draw a treasure card, or you may draw a treasure card and lower the dragon's temper by 1 point. You also have the Coward. The Coward does not have to pay any money or any treasure in order to cry like a baby. I'll get back to that in a minute. And the character that everyone that I played with hates, the Psychic, and I recommend not playing with this character if you can avoid it. The Psychic does this weird thing where that player will take a card from each player's hand in clockwise order. If it's a treasure, they get to keep it. If it's an item, then they give that item back, and that player gets to steal an item, a card at random from the Psychic. It's just a weird and clumsy ability. Now, there's 2 decks of cards in the game. You have the treasure cards, and you have the dungeon deck. The treasure deck is mostly full of these generic treasures, which only have a gold coin value at the end of the game, and that's what you need in order to win the game. But what's even cooler are these special items, the magic items. There are potions and talismans, and there's a lot of them. I'm only going to show you 4. Now the potions are one and done. You can use as many potions or talismans as you want per turn. When you use a potion, it goes into your discard pile. So the Potion of Vision lets you look at the top 2 cards of the dungeon deck and put them back on top or bottom in any order. The Potion of Light, however, lets you look at every single card in the deck, but you must put them back down in exactly the same order. Talismans stay in play until the deck gets reshuffled for any reason. The Talisman of Invisibility essentially takes you out of the game. You can't be hurt by anything, you can't be targeted by anything, but you also don't take turns at all, so you won't get any treasure. And the Talisman of Redirection stays in play, and when you choose to use it, assuming you haven't got to a reshuffle yet, if the dragon attacks you, you can redirect it to another player instead. Now, the dungeon deck is much smaller. There's not many cards here, and whenever you flip over a card in the dungeon deck, you just do what it tells you to do. I'll get back to how that happens in a moment. For instance, draw a treasure, you may take another turn. Draw one of the last 3 discarded treasures. That has the stop sign on it, which means you have to stop your turn and it goes to the next player. Same thing, the next player cannot cry like a baby and you have to stop your turn. Take another turn, mandatory. Draw or discard until you have exactly 4 treasures, which could be good or bad from you depending on how you are in the game. And there is 1 dragon attack card. This ends your turn. You take a damage, which means you flip yourself over to your injured side, and the dragon's temper goes down by 1 point. Now, how do you actually get cards from either of these decks? How is that all going to work? Well, you're going to decide who's going to go first. Notice that you start off with 4 treasure cards as well. But you'll decide who's going to go first, and on your turn, you have to make a decision. You have a mandatory action you must perform, but you have 3 options as to what to do. The first is just to charge. You're just going to say, you know what? I'm just going for it. I'm just going to flip over the top card of the deck, do whatever it tells me to do, take the consequences, hope that it's not the dragon. The alternative to that, though, is hiding. Now, hiding is more difficult because in order to hide, first and foremost, you have to sacrifice a treasure worth at least 1 from your hand. You're essentially throwing away treasure in order to distract the enemy or to make yourself lighter. And then you have to roll the D10. And what you're trying to get on the D10 is a number higher than the number of cards left in the dungeon deck. So at the beginning of the game, it's really, really difficult to do, or at the beginning of a round, I should say, after just having reshuffle. But as cards get drawn from the dungeon deck, it gets easier and easier until you can actually distinctly make that happen. If you hide successfully, you get to lower the dragon's temper by a point, and then you may either charge or pass to the next player. Oh, I'm sorry, the important bit there is that you get to reshuffle the deck even before you do that. Then you can charge or pass to the next player. But if you fail in your test, you must charge into the next room, and you do not get to reshuffle the deck. And by the way, rolling this is the 0 on this die is not a 10, it's a 0. That is an automatic failure. The third option that you have is to cry like a baby. To cry like a baby, you have to discard a treasure that is worth at least 2 gold, and there's no change made in this game, unfortunately. And then you're just out. You hide behind the other adventurers, you don't have to draw a card, play goes to the next person, but you have no shot at getting any treasure, either because you're just a coward. You may actually be the actual coward. But that's basically the game. Every player is going to go in order, taking their mandatory action from those 3 choices. You may get hit by the dragon. You may get completely eliminated. But ultimately, as time goes on, either from the dragon attacking or from people hiding, you are going to, or from the warrior's ability, you're going to drop down that dragon's temper as far as it can go. And then whoever is still alive in the game, assuming everyone's not dead, is going to count up all their treasure that they have left in hand, the normal treasure, and whoever has the most in gold coins is going to be the winner. That's Dragon Run. Let's get to my final thoughts. First and foremost, I love the presentation of Dragon Run. It has that incredible artwork from Vincent Dutrait, which I've never seen in fantasy form before, I don't think. I've seen it used in a lot of other genres, but not really fantasy to my remembrance, and it looks fantastic. I mean, everything about it, the board and the character tiles. I wish everything was those thick tiles like that. I wish the dungeon cards were just tiles, since there's not that many of them, but everything looks fantastic, and even the artwork on the treasure cards. I even like the weird looking dragon meeple they use for the temper track. And as far as the actual gameplay goes, well, let me talk about the theme. The theme is okay. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's just a very light push your luck game, so I didn't expect the theme to be too deep into it, but I like the idea that this dragon is chasing everyone around, and the track going down isn't just a round counter, it's actually like she's getting less and less angry as time goes on. So I do like the idea of that, and how every character has their own different special abilities. It adds a bit of theme to the game, but not tons, but I didn't really expect that much. But the gameplay is very, very fun. This is kind of what I wanted Welcome to the Dungeon to be. I'm the only reviewer that doesn't like that game, but this is so much better for me. It fits into that niche, even though they're not exactly the same as far as the fantasy theme of going down through a dungeon and just being light and fast. This one works so much better for me. Like I said, I love the character powers. I love how you have a very simple array of choices laid out before you, and the game is very, very random. That's the knock against it. It's a lot of things are just not in your control, but there are some things that are in your control, like the choices that you make on your particular turn, how you decide to use your items, and how do you decide to use your special ability. These are just a tiny bit of strategy in the game, but they're enough for me to cling on to and to really enjoy it, despite how random everything else is, like the cards coming out of the dungeon deck. I mean, sometimes at the start of your turn, you're like, well, what the hell, I'll charge. Oh, look, dragon. I take a damage. And I possibly am dead, too. So there is player elimination in the game, but there's an interesting back and forth, because someone in each of the games, well, let's see, all 4 of the games, or 5 of the games that we've played of this, I think someone has the cleric, and I think that on at least 3 of those occasions, someone said, why would I heal someone? You know, this just kept coming up over and over again. And the thing was, we couldn't initially come up with an answer, but then it was like, oh, wait a minute. We need the game to end. The game is only going to end when the dragon runs out of steam, when her temper goes down. So I kind of need to keep you around for a little while. And I think other games like Cutthroat Caverns use a mechanism similar to this. So that's an interesting aspect to the game. You don't necessarily want everyone to keep dying too fast, because then you're going to be the only one going down through the deck over and over and over again, and eventually the dragon could just wipe all of you out. So I do like that dynamic to it, and it's just a lot of fun if you don't take it too seriously. The character powers are cool, although I said this in the overview, I would absolutely consider not ever playing with the Psychic, which is just a really annoying and dumb role, which it could have been a cool one too. I don't know why they messed that one up, but all the other ones are pretty neat, and I dig the theme and the flavor of this game, and certainly the presentation. That is Dragon Run from Blue Orange Games. Check it out. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon, and make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.